The summer heat clung to my skin like a second layer as I stood outside the old Grayson house, its warped clapboard siding peeling like dead skin. The kind of place you'd pass without a second glance unless you were stupid enough to believe the rumors, which I guess I was. The locals called it cursed, said anyone who went inside heard things. Whispers, cries, names called by voices that shouldn't exist. But I was 19, fresh off a breakup, and desperate for something to distract me. So when my cousin Nate dared me to spend an hour inside, I grabbed my flashlight and a half-dead phone, ignoring the knot in my stomach as I pushed open the front door, the hinges groaning like a dying animal. Inside, the air was thick with dust, swirling in my flashlight's beam, and the smell hit me hard. Rotting wood, mildew, and something sour like sweat. The living room was frozen in time. A sagging couch covered in mold, a coffee table with a cracked glass top, and a fireplace choked with ash. But what caught my eye was the wallpaper, yellowed and curling, with faint scratches that looked like words. I stepped closer, my sneakers crunching on broken glass, and traced the marks. They spelled listen, over and over, carved into the plaster beneath, and as I stood there, heart pounding, I heard it. A faint whisper, soft as a breath, coming from the walls, saying my name. Elliot, Elliot. Like it knew me. I told myself it was the wind, but the air was still heavy, and the whisper grew louder, more insistent, until it felt like it was inside my skull. I stumbled upstairs, the steps creaking so loud I thought they'd collapse, and found a hallway lined with doors, all closed except one, slightly ajar, leaking a cold draft that made my breath fog. I pushed it open, my flashlight shaking, and saw a bedroom, empty except for a single chair facing a cracked mirror. And in the reflection, I saw her. A woman, pale as bone, her eyes black pits, her mouth moving, whispering my name. But she wasn't in the room, only in the glass. I froze, my heart hammering, and the whisper became a hiss. You shouldn't be here. And the chair scraped across the floor, inching toward me on its own. I backed away, but the door slammed shut, the lock clicking, and the mirror began to ripple like water, her hands pressing against it from the other side, clawing to get out. I screamed, yanking at the door, and when it finally gave, I ran, tripping down the stairs, the whispers chasing me. Now a chorus, dozens of voices, all saying my name, laughing, mocking. I burst outside, gulping air, but when I looked back, the house was silent, the windows dark, like nothing had happened. I drove home, shaking, and that night, I found scratches on my arm, spelling listen. And ever since, every time I close my eyes, I hear her voice, whispering from inside my head, calling me back to that house, and I'm terrified that one day, I'll listen. I've never been one to believe in ghosts, not the kind you see in movies or hear about in campfire tales. So when I decided to take a shortcut through the old part of town last fall, I didn't think twice about the Harrow House. Even though the locals swore it was cursed, a place where people went in and didn't come out the same. It was late October, the air cool and heavy with the scent of fallen leaves, and I was running late for a friend's party. My phone dead, the streetlights flickering, like they were on their last breath. So when I saw the house's sagging silhouette, its boarded windows like blind eyes and its front door cracked open just enough to tempt me, I figured cutting through would save me a few minutes, ignoring the chill that crawled up my neck as I stepped onto the creaking porch. The door groaned as I pushed it open, the sound echoing into a foyer that smelled of damp earth and something sharp, like burnt coins, the kind of smell that sticks in your throat. My flashlight's beam barely pierced the gloom, revealing cracked tiles, a shattered mirror leaning against a wall, and furniture draped in dust so thick it looked like snow. But what caught my eye was a faint hum, low and rhythmic, like a heartbeat pulsing through the house. I told myself it was just old pipes, but my skin prickled, and my sneakers crunched on debris. Old newspapers, broken glass. As I moved toward a dining room, where a long table sat covered in cracked plates, as if set for a meal that never happened. On the table was a single photograph, yellowed and curling, showing a figure that looked eerily like me. Same jacket, same nervous stance. Standing in a room I didn't recognize, and my stomach twisted, but I shook it off, thinking it was just a trick of the light. The hum grew louder, coming from upstairs, and against every instinct screaming to leave, I followed it, my footsteps echoing unnaturally loud, like the house was amplifying my presence. The staircase was narrow, warped, each step creaking as if it might collapse, and the air turned colder, my breath fogging despite the stuffy warmth. At the top, a hallway stretched into shadow, lined with closed doors, but one at the far end was ajar, leaking a sickly yellow glow that pulsed with the hum, and I felt drawn to it, like a moth to a flame. I pushed the door open and the room was wrong, too big, its walls stretching farther than the house's frame should allow, covered in hundreds of photographs pinned to the plaster, each showing people frozen in fear, their eyes wide, mouths open in silent screams. The hum was deafening now, vibrating in my chest, and my flashlight flickered, catching a shadow moving across the photos. Not on the wall, but inside them, a faceless figure with a tilted head, its form blurred but watching me. I froze, my heart hammering, and the photographs began to change, now showing me. My face, my clothes, my terror, in moments I hadn't lived. Running, screaming, trapped. Panic clawed at me and I tore at the photos, but they bled, red liquid dripping onto the floor, pooling around my sneakers, and the shadow in the photos grew larger, its limbs stretching, reaching. A voice, deep and hollow, chuckled from nowhere, saying, "You belong here." And I turned to run, but the door was gone, the wall seamless, smooth as glass. I pounded on it, screaming, my flashlight flickering wildly, and the photos bled faster, the red pooling into shapes, hands, faces, eyes, crawling toward me. The air was suffocating, thick with the smell of iron, and the shadow's chuckle became a roar, shaking the walls. I don't know how I got out. Maybe the house let me go, but I stumbled into the foyer, tripping over debris, and found the front door, now open, moonlight spilling in. I ran, my lungs burning, and didn't look back, the hum fading but never fully gone. When I got home, I locked my door, shaking, and found a photograph in my jacket pocket. One I don't remember taking, showing me. In that room, my eyes blank, the faceless figure standing behind me, its hands on my shoulders. I burned it, the flames curling the edges, but the smell of burnt coins lingered, and every night since, I hear that hum, faint but growing, and sometimes in my mirror, I see that room reflected behind me, the photograph still pinned, still bleeding, still showing me. Last week, I woke to find a new photo on my nightstand, one of me sleeping, taken from above, and the shadow was there, closer, its head tilted, watching. I've tried moving, staying with friends, but the hum follows, and I'm terrified that one night, I'll wake up back in that room, trapped forever with the faces that remember. I've never been one to back down from a dare, not even when my friends called me out for skipping their last urban exploration trip. So when they bet me I wouldn't last 10 minutes in the old Miller house, a rotting shell at the edge of town with a reputation for missing kids and strange lights, I grabbed my flashlight and headed out, determined to prove them wrong, even though the stories made my stomach twist. It was a humid August evening, the air thick with the scent of wet grass and decay, and as I approached the house, its sagging roof and empty windows staring like hollow eyes, a chill ran through me, like the night itself was warning me to turn back. The back door was warped, splintered, and I pried it open, the wood groaning like a low moan, revealing a kitchen that reeked of stale grease and something sweet, like rotting fruit, the kind of smell that clings to your skin. My flashlight's beam cut through the gloom, illuminating cracked counters, rusted utensils, and walls, streaked with dark stains that looked like claw marks, and I told myself it was just an old dump, nothing more, but my hands were already shaking. I moved deeper, past a living room cluttered with overturned chairs, yellowed newspapers from decades ago, and a broken doll with a cracked face, its glass eyes glinting in the light. Then I heard it. A soft thump, rhythmic like a child's footsteps pacing above, and my heart skipped, but I brushed it off as the house settling, though the air felt heavier, pressing against my chest. The staircase to the second floor was sagging, each step creaking louder than the last, and the air grew colder, my breath fogging in front of me, even though the house was stifling. At the top, a hallway stretched into shadow, lined with closed doors, but a trapdoor in the ceiling caught my eye, its rusted padlock dangling loosely, scratched with faint marks that spelled play. The thumping was louder now, deliberate, and against every instinct screaming to run, I broke the lock with a tug, the metal snapping like a bone, and climbed the ladder into the attic, my flashlight shaking in my grip. The attic was small, dusty, cobwebs hanging like ghostly veils, and in the center sat a child's rocking horse, moving gently, creaking as if someone had just touched it. The air was suffocating, thick with dust and that sweet, rotting smell, and then I saw her. A girl, maybe 8, in a faded dress, sitting cross-legged in the corner, her eyes too big, too black, staring right through me. She didn't move, didn't blink, but her voice, small and sharp, said, "Play with me." And the rocking horse sped up, its creaking filling the room like a heartbeat. My throat tightened, and I backed toward the ladder, but the trapdoor slammed shut, the sound like a gunshot, and the girl was suddenly closer, her face inches from mine, her breath cold as ice, whispering, "You can't leave." I screamed, kicking at the trapdoor, my flashlight flickering, and the girl's laughter echoed, high and piercing, as the rocking horse rocked wildly, the walls trembling. I don't know how I got the trapdoor open. Maybe it let me. But I fell through, tumbling down the ladder, pain shooting through my leg as I hit the hallway floor. I limped through the house, tripping over debris, the laughter chasing me, growing louder, until I burst out the back door, collapsing onto the grass, gasping for air. I sprinted to my car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the wheel, and when I checked my pockets later, my keys were gone, replaced by a tiny, carved wooden horse, still warm, like it had been held. I tried to laugh it off, told myself it was just adrenaline, but when I got home, I locked every door, every window, and burned that horse in my backyard, the smoke curling like fingers. I moved away a month later, desperate to leave it behind, but the thumping never stopped. Every night, I hear it above my ceiling, rhythmic, like a child pacing, and last week, I found another wooden horse on my nightstand, its surface scratched with the word play. I've started seeing her in my dreams, the girl, sitting in the corner of my room, her black eyes watching, her voice whispering my name, and sometimes, when I wake up, the air smells of rotting fruit, and I swear I hear the creak of a rocking horse, waiting for me to come back and play. I've always prided myself on being the skeptic in the group, the one who rolls his eyes at ghost stories and insists there's a rational explanation for everything. So when my coworkers at the auto shop dared me to sneak into the old Carver house during our late-night break, claiming it was haunted by something that trapped people forever, I laughed it off, figuring a quick photo inside would shut them up and earn me a free beer. It was a crisp October night in 2023, the kind where the wind carries the bite of winter and the air smelled of fallen leaves and distant rain. But as I parked my truck a block away and walked up to the house, its squat brick walls looming under the flickering streetlights, a knot formed in my gut, the kind you ignore because admitting it means you're not as tough as you pretend. The front door was swollen, splintered from years of neglect, and I pried it open with a crowbar from my toolbox, the wood groaning like a warning, revealing a foyer thick with the scent of damp plaster and something sharper, like burnt hair mixed with rust. My flashlight's beams sliced through the dust motes, illuminating cracked tiles that crunched under my boots and walls scarred with water stains that, if you squinted, looked like twisted faces whispering secrets. I snapped a selfie by the shattered coat rack, chuckling to myself about how easy this was, but then I heard it. A faint hum, low and rhythmic, vibrating through the floorboards like a distant engine. And my laugh died in my throat. I told myself it was the wind through the boards, but the air was still heavy, pressing against my skin, and the hum seemed to pulse in time with my heartbeat, drawing me deeper into the living room, where a sagging couch sagged under invisible weight and a television with a spiderweb screen reflected my pale face back at me, distorted, like it knew something I didn't. The hum grew louder, coming from a hallway off to the side, lined with identical doors, all closed except one at the far end, slightly ajar, leaking a sickly yellow light that flickered like a dying bulb. Curiosity won out over caution. After all, what harm could a quick peek do? And I moved toward it, my boots echoing too loudly, the air turning colder with each step, my breath fogging in front of me despite the musty warmth. I pushed the door open, and my flashlight sputtered out, plunging me into that yellow glow, which came from nowhere and everywhere, illuminating a room that didn't belong, small, windowless, its walls lined floor to ceiling with mirrors, each one cracked but reflective, showing me from every angle, but not quite right. My eyes too wide, my mouth twisted into a grin I wasn't wearing, like the mirrors were mocking me. In the center stood a door, freestanding, not attached to any wall, its wood dark and veined like flesh, humming louder now, vibrating the floor beneath my feet. I swear I heard a voice then, soft and pleading, slithering from the crack. Beneath it, "Open it, just once." My hand trembled as I reached for the rusted knob, every fiber of me screaming to run. But it was like my body wasn't mine anymore, fingers closing around the cold metal, turning it with a click that echoed like a gunshot. The door swung inward, revealing not another room but a void, black, endless, swirling with shadows that whispered and clawed, and from it reached cold fingers, ethereal and insistent, brushing my wrist, pulling with a force that made my bones ache. I yanked back, stumbling, and the mirrors shattered in unison, shards exploding outward like brittle bones, the pieces catching the yellow light and raining down, slicing shallow cuts across my arms. In the fragments, I saw them, figures tall and thin, with two long limbs and heads tilted at impossible angles, their faces blurred but eyes like voids, stepping from the mirrors toward me, their footsteps silent but the hum roaring in my ears. The voice laughed now, deep and hollow. "You shouldn't have come, but now you're ours." Panic surged, and I bolted, flashlight flickering back on just enough to guide me through the hallway, doors slamming shut behind me as if the house was sealing itself. I reached the foyer, heart pounding like a drum, but the front door was gone, replaced by a blank wall, seamless plaster mocking me. And the hum was everywhere, footsteps, slow, deliberate, trailing me from the shadows. I pounded on the wall, fists raw, screaming curses until my voice cracked and somehow, impossibly, the plaster gave way, crumbling like dry earth, spilling me onto the porch in a heap of dust and debris. I scrambled to my feet, running to my truck without looking back, the night air slapping my face. But when I slammed the door and peeled out, the hum lingered in my ears, faint but persistent. At home, I bandaged the cuts, laughing shakily about how I'd tell the guys it was all raccoons, but in the mirror, I saw the mark on my wrist, a red burn in the shape of fingers pulsing with that yellow glow. I've avoided the shop talk since, but the hum returns at night, growing louder, and last week, I woke to find a door in my bedroom wall, one that wasn't there before. Freestanding, humming, its knob warm to the touch. I haven't opened it, but every morning, the cuts on my arms have new scratches, spelling "come back." And I know the figures are waiting patient, remembering my face from the mirrors, and one day, when the hum drowns out my screams, I'll turn that knob and step through, because deep down, part of me wonders what's on the other side. I've always been the kind of person who laughs off ghost stories, chalking them up to overactive imaginations. So when my sister Lily bet me $20 I wouldn't spend 10 minutes in the old Whitaker house, a crumbling farmhouse on the edge of town with a reputation for strange lights and whispers of lost souls, I saw it as easy money, a chance to prove her wrong. It was a chilly November evening, the wind whistling through barren trees, carrying the scent of wet earth and decay. And as I approached the house, its chipped paint and sagging roof silhouetted against a fading sky, a prickle ran down my neck, like the night itself was watching me. The front door hung off its hinges, scraping the floor as I pushed it open, the sound echoing like a low wail into a living room thick with the smell of mildew and something sweet, like rotting flowers. My phone's flashlight cast a weak beam, illuminating dust-covered furniture. A sagging couch, a shattered television, and yellowed newspapers scattered like fallen leaves, and I smirked, thinking I'd record a quick video to rub in Lily's face. But the silence was heavy, pressing against my ears, and as I moved past a staircase, I heard a faint scratching, like nails dragging across wood, coming from upstairs. I told myself it was just rats, but my pulse quickened, and my sneakers crunched on broken glass, each step louder than it should have been, like the house was amplifying my presence. Curiosity, or maybe stupidity, pulled me up the stairs, each warped step creaking, the air growing colder, my breath fogging in front of me despite the house's stuffy warmth. At the top, a hallway stretched into shadow, lined with closed doors, but a cracked window at the far end caught my eye, its glass glinting under moonlight, and in it, I saw a face. Not mine, but a man's, pale and gaunt, with hollow black eyes staring right at me, his mouth moving, forming my name. I froze, my phone slipping to the floor, the flashlight beam flickering, and when I blinked, the face was gone. But the scratching grew louder, now coming from a door nearby. My heart pounded, but I couldn't stop myself. I opened the door, revealing a small room, empty except for a single rocking chair, moving slowly, back and forth, as if someone had just left it. The air was thick, the rotting flower smell overwhelming, and the scratching stopped, replaced by a whisper low and guttural, saying, "Look behind you." I spun around, my flashlight, sweeping the hallway, but it was empty except for the window, where the face reappeared, closer now, smiling unnaturally, its breath fogging the glass. The chair rocked faster, creaking like a heartbeat, and the walls seemed to pulse, closing in, the air so heavy I could barely breathe. Panic surged and I stumbled back, the whisper growing into a hiss, repeating my name, and in the window's reflection, I saw a tall, thin figure behind me, its hands reaching, fingers long and skeletal. I screamed, bolting down the stairs, tripping over debris. Broken frames, torn curtains, and when I reached the living room, the front door was shut, locked from the outside, its surface scratched with the words, "Stay here." I pounded on it, my fists raw, the scratching now echoing from the ceiling, like something crawling above, and the figure's shadow loomed in the corner, its head tilted watching. Desperation took over, and I threw my weight against the door, again and again, until it burst open, spilling me onto the porch, the cold air hitting me like a shock. I sprinted to my car, tires screeching as I sped away, my hands trembling so badly I could barely steer. Back home, I locked every door, every window, and checked my phone, expecting a blank video, but it wasn't. It showed the hallway, the window, and that face, smiling, and behind me, the tall figure, its hands inches from my shoulders. I deleted it, heart racing, but the scratching returned that night, faint at first, then louder, coming from my bedroom window. I tried to ignore it, told myself it was the wind, but when I dared to look, the man's face was there, pressed against the glass, his hollow eyes locked on mine, his smile wider, fogging the pain. I moved out the next week, staying with friends, but the scratching follows me every night, and last night, I found a photo under my pillow, one I don't remember taking, showing my new bedroom window, the man's face clear, his hands pressed against it, and faint scratches spelling, "Let me in." I can't sleep anymore. The air always smells of rotting flowers, and every shadow feels like him, waiting, watching, ready to step through the glass the moment I look away.